What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other host of this show, Nick. And Nick, it's a Rumor Mill Thursday. Drama, continuous, rumors on Matthew Stafford, Jalen Ramsey. Whatever, I'd say the top 10 on the roster at this point have been rumored to potentially be moved. But first and most importantly, how are you, my good brother?
I'm good. Up at like 4:30 a.m. for work today. And I had this thought in the back of my mind. I was like, we got to do a podcast tonight. Don't really know what we're going to talk about. And then luckily, Lombardi's coming out saying, oh, yeah, the Rams absolutely are taking calls on Matthew Stafford and all this stuff's going on. And I'm just like, can a day go by when Rams Twitter isn't running amok?
I was actually thinking the exact same thing because I had woken up today and I was like, it's been almost 2 full days. It's been like 48 hours of no Rams news, like no trade drama, no potentially we're going to let a player go seek a trade, or we're going to potentially cut a player, like nothing. So it had been quiet. I guess it was time. And considering the Rams are one of the top 7-10 teams or so that fall within the spotlight, have won a Super Bowl recently, if there's drama surrounding the Rams, it's likely going to hit, major airwaves and will make headlines. So yeah, the Mike Lombardi thing was really interesting because I saw that this morning and I'm thinking to myself, Mike Lombardi is a New Jersey resident. He's from Ocean City, New Jersey. I've read one of his books before. He was a director of player pro personnel for almost, I think, 25 years or so in the league across the Eagles. He was an assistant for the Patriots, won a couple of Super Bowls for the Patriots. So that's the only reason why I said on Twitter that he is a credible source. Like, he has respect throughout the league. He has championships under his name. He has written novels about football. Like, he knows what he's talking about. But to go on the Pat McAfee show and just throw it out there that the Rams have been calling around to trade Matthew Stafford, like, fired an emergency press conference for Les Snead later in the day, which was, it seems a little bit dramatic, but maybe the press conference wasn't technically an emergency press conference. Maybe Les was scheduled to speak regardless, but still really interesting the way that the news broke. And I thought the way that he said it and how he was so passionate about the fact that he knew, and he's talked to other GMs and the former GMs across the league, assumably have a circle or a group text. Him and Mike Tannenbaum from ESPN just texting back and forth. So I don't know, what was your instant reaction when you saw it this morning, Nick?
Okay. Immediate, instant reaction. Yeah. Don't gut me or, grill me at the steak or whatever the expression is, was, oh my God, the Rams are going to get Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going there.
That was the first thought. I was like, it makes no sense to me that all these teams are like, Carolina Panthers are like, yeah, we're good. Like,
it doesn't make any sense.
What? So I don't know. Like, for them to push that out there and from this, credible Ocean City source, Lombardi, to make that like a public thing, it made me kind of sit back and be like, there is a high talent MVP level player on the table, and all love to Super Bowl champ Matthew Stafford. I think maybe the idea was we can bring in somebody that can completely, turn this team into something that we've never seen before.
Sure.
So I was just ready to bulldoze and move on when I saw it, because that was the only, to me, it was like you're only moving on from him if you're going to get something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I think too many things are in place, right? Like, they've given up too much capital over the last 6 or 7 years to trade up and go get Jared Goff. Like, they then gave up all this draft capital, the first round pick, second round pick, to go get Matthew Stafford and to take on his salary. And then you're going to go give additional draft capital on top of that to then get rid of Matthew Stafford and bring in Lamar Jackson. It's like there's too many moving pieces. So I was thinking to myself, yeah, of course, that would be a very fun idea. And the second piece is that it doesn't fully align with the remodel methodology, right? Like, the way that they're going to go about building the cap, building the roster this year, I don't think it would align with the fact that, if you're going full rebuild, you're tearing down the walls, to Les's points today when he was in his interview. Like, you're getting rid of your good players. You're getting rid of Aaron Donald. You're taking calls for Matthew Stafford. You're taking calls for Cooper Kupp. When in reality, they're building in totality, building for the next window. Like that is the next methodology for the Rams is we're going to play it safe. We're going to pump the brakes in 2023, get ourselves in a much healthier cap situation. And then in 2024, 2025, we're going to then compete for the next Super Bowl.
Right.
So to me, there was a lot of confidence coming out of Les Snead in that regard. Said it was a very busy offseason, but the fact that they've had a chance, a little bit longer of an offseason, not coming out of the longest season of the NFL's history, right? They didn't make the playoffs, so they've had some time to bounce some ideas off of coaches, onboard them, build their draft strategy, build their unrestricted free agent strategy, which Les described when the bell rings at Wednesday. I think it's at 1:00 is when you have to be under the salary cap. So that's step one for them. And I think that there's more to do than sit there all day and take calls for your top 9 best players, right? You have to figure out who you're going to prioritize in free agency. You're getting ready. You're compiling information from the combine. And we talked about this in previous episodes, Nick. Like there's a lot of work to do before that March 15th date hits. And as we do these episodes twice a week, like this time flies by.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no downtime to have.
Yeah. And just to kind of like speak on the remodeling of the future and whatnot, they do have to draft better. There is more to the job in Les Snead that, you're not going out and getting proven talent at this point. What you're talking about is going into the draft and finding people that are coming out, that are fresh, that are cheap, that you can use with your other pillars, as you want to call them, Stafford, Kupp, and Donald. And Ramsey no longer mentioned in that. So he's gone. So he's going to be the one that brings in the capital. And with that capital, you got to do your homework, and the drafts over the last couple years, I mean, just look at Darrell Henderson. Was a key component in the Super Bowl, like almost in spite of what they wanted to do. It's like the run game was not working, but he needed to step up and make big plays. And he did when it was, given to him. But now he's off the team. Like
could be completely out of the league.
Yeah. He might not even be on the team next year. They'll probably sign him at some point. Honestly, if he's on no team, they may bring him back in the building like a Malcolm Brown situation.
Yeah. But you're 100% right. This is where you earn your money.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Back to what you were saying. Go ahead.
No, as much as they want to talk about retooling and rebuilding, you have to do your homework right now and make sure that you're bringing in players and people that can be key contributors and that can be cheap for right now. And if you don't if you want to talk about this year or this coming year as let's be scrappy and, we're not going to make it to the Super Bowl next year, but we're going to be ready to be in that situation in the coming year. I think you need to seriously consider, and you brought this up before we started talking, you need to seriously consider a situation where Matthew Stafford is not one of those pillars, and them releasing this information, somebody releasing this information that they're potentially taking calls on him, I think is just more to be believed that he might not be here past next year.
Well, Les said he's taken calls for 9 players to this point, from the end of the season this year all the way to this point, March 9th. So, it's a lot. And you would assume that guys like Ramsey, Floyd, and Higbee are on that list, maybe even Joe Noteboom. But then, obviously, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald. Les said that people were calling him just to try and figure out what their plan was for the future. Like, there's a massive clarification that's needed, I guess, throughout the national media and throughout all Rams fans. Like, they needed to know whether this was going to be a retool, a remodel, or a rebuild. And I think that Les really did a good job of drawing the line today. And I think in regards to, how do you construct the supplemental piece of your roster? He made one point that there's not just one person that they're looking at throughout free agency. They're looking for and this is the way that they've constructed their roster in the past. But I think in a more cap-safe, futuristic type way where they're looking out for the next 3 years versus just going all in, spending, 2 first-round picks, a high second-round pick to go out and get a player. So it's just an adjustment period. I think that pumping the brakes is really going to do good for the franchise because it's then going to open up opportunity for them through 2024, 2025. And McVay, Les pretty much guaranteed on the call today that there is no reason for Sean McVay to be reconsidering his future in years to come, right? It's not going to be an every single year thing. There's not going to be that piece of the organization that's kind of being drowned down by Sean McVay trying to make up his mind for the future. I think what's important is they understand that, yeah, there's Aaron Donald. They refer to him as an A player, but you need 3 to 4 B players to complement him, whether that's in the draft, whether that's in free agency, or it's an A- player. Like Les likes to play around with these isms and terminologies of pillars and breaking down walls. And I think that he made a really good point in terms of we want to get the best grouping of players for 2023 moving forward that would also be complementary to the players that we also have in house while still developing the guys that we've drafted over the past couple of years. So it's a huge undertaking. I mean, you got a lot of, I guess this is my favorite terminology and ism or jargon, is there are a lot of moving pieces at this point, which I feel like that's how I transition. But you're right, 2021, Nick Tutu Atwell, Ernest Jones, Bobby Brown, Robert Rochelle, Jacob Harris, Ernest Brown, Jake Funk, Ben Skoranek, and Chris Garrett. If it's not
Who's your
for
favorite player out of that crew?
I mean, how is it not Ben Skoranek? No, I mean, I guess you can go Ernest Jones, right?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
Well, Ernest Jones
that's the best of the best. Let's say it's Ernest Jones or Ben Skoranek. You need to be better than that. I'm sorry, sure. Ben Skoranek truthers, but that cannot be your highest caliber intake from a draft.
I totally agree with you. No, yeah. And then there's Ernest Jones, right? Which Super Bowl contributor. He's going to be the Mike linebacker this year. He's going to be in control of the defense. So a lot of optimism to be had with him. That was a good pick. Tutu, I guess the jury's still out on Tutu.
Yeah.
But if you go Tutu, Ernest, Benny Skoranek, Jake Funk, Chris Garrett, Jacob Harris no longer here. Robert Rochelle can't even play special teams. Need Bobby Brown to be able to kind of step up and be one of those B-level players and develop into an assistant to Aaron Donald, maybe replacing somebody like Greg Gaines or Ashawn Robinson.
Yeah.
I mean, you're entirely right. It's like you go back and look at the last 2 drafts. The previous one was tough. I think the back-to-back years in 2021 and 2022, they had 8 total picks. Then last year you went 3rd round Logan Bruss. Then you went Durant in the 4th. 5th was Kyron. So there's no top 100 picks. There's a Rams methodology they tried to instill in previous years was we want as many top 100 picks as we can get. We don't need first round picks. We don't need top 32 picks. Let's get 3 or 4 top 100 picks. Yeah. And that wasn't even the case in the last 2 years. And Nick, I think it could be one of the reasons why, you're kind of in this position now. And also forcibly, so many top players were injured. So it's like these guys were forced to be on the field before they were already developed because they're later round picks. They need a longer time to be able to kind of comprehend the scheme and all that stuff. So yeah, it's I don't know how you handle it moving forward. I mean, you got to just do the work every single day to make sure your roster's ready to go in 23.
Yeah. It has to be nose to the grind.
Yeah.
You were kind of playing like Lesney was almost playing like a fantasy league essentially when he was playing GM, where you're trading for high caliber players. And they also got lucky that Von Miller and OBJ kind of like, obviously that like those were signings that happened during the year of the Super Bowl. Those were both key factors that you needed to have during the season. So your draft capital was used to bring in these A-tier players. So you weren't even really having to do much of the who are we going to bring in kind of work. It was more like let's just bring in, top tier talent. And then now on the other end of that, I think they're going to be trying to get away from the F them picks, persona and mentality, because he already spoke on that saying if it was really F them picks, then we'd be trading in division, and it's not. So you're kind of in a situation where, like we've been saying, you got to do your homework and you have to bring in people that are going to be capable and ready to perform immediately, come week 1. So yeah. I don't want to see them, like, unless it's Lamar, I don't want to see them bringing in like another A-tier player. And it seemed like Les's, conference today, that is the way, that's away from where they're going.
You're entirely right. I mean, I think you take a step back from F them picks. You take a step back from the last 5 years, which we talked about in previous episodes, was a massive climb to the top. And the fact that it was so exhilarating and the dopamine drip just slowly slipped out of our brains as the next season progressed. Like that's why it's so difficult to be able to kind of compile it and redo it all again. And you're right, the FDM picks methodology goes away. You stop trading away some of the top picks. You start developing your talent in-house. You start really looking to nail some of those top picks, and you clean out the dead money in 2023. I think that's really kind of what's most important is how do you get all that dead money off of your book in 2023, give a cleaner readout for 2024 and 2025, keep Sean McVay in place. That's not going to be something that's a determinant every single year. Figure out a way to get under the cap, do all the calculus you need to do by March 15th. And, this is the one thing, Nick, that I wanted to kind of just pass back in your direction, because it's kind of the point that you've already alluded to. This is a line from Les Snead. Our DNA is to attack. And at this point, we have to hit the brakes a little.
Yeah. And I think
is that discouraging for Rams fans to hear at this point?
I don't think so. Not after last year. Hitting the brakes and getting to a point where you can be a contributor again in a tough division where two teams from that division made it to the playoffs. You want to be competitive and you want to, own the Los Angeles title and, be a team that's thriving. But, look at the Lakers. They won the championship in 2020 and they've had down years and they've kind of just taken it on the chin. I mean, a genie bus is way off from Stan Kroenke. It feels like Stan Kroenke actually kind of knows what he's doing. But they followed a similar model. It was like trade away assets, get that one A-type player. You got him, win the championship, and then deal with the downfall. And now the Lakers are in a potential situation where they can really compete right now. But that was after a couple years of being really mediocre. So not every championship is built the same, but being a team that will be always fighting for one, whether that's long-term or short-term, you could be like the Lions have been for the past 50 years up until now, where it's they didn't even have windows. They had one window when Stafford was there when they were a wild card playoff team,
their best chance. Their best chance was to win it in 1992 when they beat the Cowboys 38-6 in a wild card round.
Right, that's what I mean. Some teams are just fine with consistent mediocrity, but you can tell at least with this organization that they're going in there, they're changing things up so they can get back to that position.
And that I think is a reflection of how smart the people are within that building. I think when we talked about in the last episode, when to cut your losses. That means you're a smart businessman. When you make an investment that's poor, and you need more stock, that's how you drop your investment and you move on and you cut your losses and you figure out what's next and you figure out how to rebuild it all over again for the next 3 or 4 seasons to then create a sustainable business model. And not to get, too jargon friendly, but that's where Stan Kroenke comes into play. And you were talking about how, though Kroenke knows what he's doing. And I think Kroenke was the most passionate about once they won the Super Bowl. Kroenke was like, oh, Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round. How about that? And then he went with his classic, whose house?
That was the worst, best ever.
But it was worse than best. But that ownership, that the general managers, the people in the front office that structure the contracts are very much interested in finding those type of players who you could then go ahead and move them into that next, unbreakable wall or pillar or core or whatever you want to call it. So I'm interested to see how they construct it. I think the best part and the thing that you really learn from when you listen to these conversations, listen to these interviews, is that you can understand why these guys are in the position that they're in. You understand that they're smart enough to be able to create a sustainable roster, right? It's just a matter of learning from some mistakes, getting the acceptance from your fans. So and I think that the hardest part amongst all of it is making those really tough decisions in unrestricted free agency and with some of the rosters that are ready within your contract.
Yeah.
So
and we'll see how it shakes out. And we get a little jersey love. I checked today to see when the Rams unveiled their new jersey in 2020. Like the big rebrand, in the middle of the pandemic when everything was happening at home. It was early May. So we have some time.
So it's coming. So I remember the logo was the first day of the pandemic. It felt like it was logo released in a box, teal colored hat with the logo that you're wearing on your hat right now that you hated when it was released.
Yeah, but what did I say? I said
It'll grow on me.
no. I said if and when they win the Super Bowl, I will wear that thing.
That's true. You did. You said that live
I
podcast.
do not care. As long as because now it is put right next to greatness.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it very much is symbolic of moving to LA, putting all your eggs in one basket, selling out all your, destroying your credit essentially to fund your own movie. And then the movie's a huge success. So, I mean, it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
It worked out.
I'm waiting for your next movie. Or is that in the works? I saw you were writing a script the other day. Is that still in play?
Yeah, no, it's in play. It's in play. I mean, I need like.
Is it weird and fun, the
$100,000 in
Netflix series that Jordan recommended us to create?
A Netflix series?
Yeah, weird and fun, the Rams brothers story.
I think people would watch that at least on average 1,000 to 500 a week.
Just about as many as this podcast actually gets listens.
Exactly. At
least yeah, that sounds about right. So the draft that's coming up, Nick. How many picks do we have in place? We have 10 in place. So the NFL released the comp picks. So we know exactly where our comp picks fall for the players that we had lost out on the previous year. So Darius Williams, Austin Corbett, Sebastian Joseph Day, the Robert Woods trade. I think there was another trade from whether it was Bojo, the punter. I think we got a comp pick from Green Bay, or it was a trade from Atlanta. I was reading conflicted reports, but regardless, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. 2 of them are from trades, and then 4 comps, right? And one of them was Obo. The late round pick was Obo. So Darius Williams, 167th, Corbett, 171st, SJD, 177th, and then Obo, 251st. So you got 3 5ths and a 7th in the draft this year from the comp. So I'd say it's a pretty big win. Yeah. I think you would have gotten, I'm not sure if Raheem Morris would have moved on, that you would have gotten a 3rd round pick for the minority coach being hired in a different.
I think so. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, and I think the 7th round pick may have gotten kicked out, or you would have lost one of the 5th round picks. I'm not entirely sure because 4 is the max in terms of comp picks. So I'm pretty excited to see what's going to happen in the draft, but we have a month and a half to prepare. So although that time frame is going to come around pretty quickly. So the league year starts the 15th. The draft is midway through April, and what's coming next? What's coming next, my good brother?
The reveal.
You got a reveal? 2 new winners for the hat giveaway?
No, I meant like the schedule reveal.
Oh yeah, I think we're getting the schedule reveal. We're going to get new jerseys at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so between the schedule reveal, the new jerseys, the draft, and the league year starting on March 15th, it's going to be a busy couple of months.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember the last time I was this excited for Rams season because, every other time it was the pressure of winning the Super Bowl or it was right after a Super Bowl when really you're still riding a high. Like now it's like, they're going to be frisky. We're going to see some stuff that we haven't seen from this regime. And it's going to be exciting. I'm really excited.
I think when you talk about like fun and stress levels, right? Like from 2018, the beginning of the 2018 season all the way on until probably midway through last year was just an entirely overwhelming amount of stress as a fan. Because like I mentioned, you're trying to continuously climb the mountaintop. I think 2017 in general was the most fun season I've seen as a Rams fan in my lifetime, obviously outside of
2018,
2001, I would say maybe was really close because I was super young at that point. The 99 season, also super young, but still enjoyed as much of it as I could. But that 2017 season specifically, like if you could compare and contrast, there are things, and I think, that maybe the way that they structure their roster again this year, if they feel like within OTAs and training camp that they're maybe a little bit closer than they think that they are, maybe they're not going to trade, 2 first-round picks to go out and get a guy. But if somebody like a Sammy Watkins is sitting there, somebody like a Aqib Talib, you can trade a 6th-round pick to bring in who's on the back 9, as Les Snead talked about. Like the Rams love those type of players who everybody thinks are considered to be completely done, while the Rams kind of look at it as, okay, this guy's just on the back 9. He just needs a hot dog around the turn, and he's going to be fine.
I love that. I love that analogy.
That's all. Hey, Les inspired me. I got a lot
Yeah.
and a
I mean,
little.
crazy that we got the last Mario movie trailer and the less needed conference in the same day.
Yeah, Nick, I saw there was a listener who was mad at the Mario Golf poster. Would you care to address it?
No way, really? What do you say?
Yeah, he said I thought this was a Rams podcast, not a Mario podcast. I asked if he liked the content. He said yes, but I think he's got an issue staring at Mario. Mario maybe he hasn't gone around the turn. Maybe he needs a hot dog.
I mean, it's funny because not only is it a Mario poster, but it's also a golf poster. So if he has problems with Mario, then he also has a problem with golf. So for whoever that is, let's just why not? Let's just show off some guys for him specifically.
Why don't you award him a hat?
No, definitely not. If anything,
I don't know.
I think he
followed
maybe I'll send him a Nintendo hat. I mean, that Mario trailer today looked freaking amazing.
Oh, I didn't see. You'll have to share with me after the
for every fan that doesn't like the Mario content, there is a great fan like David who loves that I talk about Mario, and him and I exchange, cool amiibos that we have together.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But that's anyway, I digress. I won't go off on Mario because
get off your soapbox. Nobody really gives a shit.
Huh?
I said nobody really gives a shit.
About what? Mario? Everybody cares about Mario.
Nobody cares about us talking about the Rams either, but we continue to prevail and bring you guys the content that you need. Before you go anywhere, make sure that you a little bit shorter of an episode today. I guess you guys are saying thank God.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
And don't forget, where are you going to find your live betting free contests and giveaways all season long? It's going to be Bet Online. Always the fastest and easiest way to place all your bets, sports wagers, what have you, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Head to betonline.ag, Mario Golf. Receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BLEAV. Receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. Thanks for listening, everybody.
How about a final question before we sign off last time? Got one for me?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me one this time because I gave you one.
Where's Lamar Jackson end up?
Like the most boring answer is he just stays a Raven.
Not an option.
Okay. Commanders. I think he goes to the Commanders. I think it's a complete overhaul of the organization. I think they bring in new owners. I think they want to make a splash, and they go after this MVP level guy. And the Commanders, I mean, like, I don't know how they willed their way to win those games last year with Taylor Heineke, like the most limited quarterback that you can possibly win games with. Like, essentially, you're playing with Baker Mayfield as your starter, and you're winning games. If you put Lamar on that team, in that division too, like, that would be the most, like, I would watch every single NFC East game.
Lamar Jackson with two great running backs. That's good. That would be a fun team. And a coach that's been to a Super Bowl before. Yeah, I would. I'd buy in on that investment. And then follow-up question: where does Jalen Ramsey go, if he goes?
Detroit. I said, welcome to Detroit City.
Crazy.
I don't know.
It's gonna be some more
voice to 5'9".
New England. What do you get back? I think New England robbed us when we traded for Sony Michel, so maybe they'll give us a couple, fourth round picks back or something like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll have fun.
Yeah, we'll have fun. We'll see. We'll be back next week, trying to get Jordan on the pod. So I think Jordan's going to come on Monday, chop it up, talk through all the details, talk through her conversation with Les, and try and fill us in on anything else that's cooking, because next week's certainly going to be busy and it's going to be fun. Stay here. We're going to be around. We love you guys. Thanks for listening, and go Rams.
Go Rams. Enjoy the weekend, guys.
Enjoy the weekend. Peace.